Are you ready over there, John?
Yep.
You ready to, okay.
Okay, you guys are now live on YouTube.
Are you ready, Marge? Ready? Okay, at being 6:30, I'll call this facilities meeting to order. First item is the roll call. I see all the members are present. So we do have a quorum for the meeting. Item number 3 on the agenda is the considerations of resolutions and ordinances to be recommended to the county board regarding the 2020 Red Cedar racing season. So all of the facilities board members should have received a proposal from the Red Cedar Racing with their operational guidelines attached. Should have received a copy of the operation procedures from the Speedway up in Superior, up in Douglas County. Should have received a copy of the procedures from Shawano County at their Speedway. Should have received a letter from the Minnesota Auto Racing Association and other numerous emails from private parties, either of in support or against it, I'm sure, because I got quite a few, so I'm sure you have it too. So at this time then, I'm going to just open it up to whoever wants to speak. Raise your hand so I can acknowledge you, and then you can say what you want to say. Does anybody want to say anything? I don't see no hands.
Yeah, I'd like to speak if that's okay.
Oh, yeah, get your hand up there. There you go. Okay. Mark Thomas.
Yeah, joining me this evening is Johnny Johnson, our vice president, and Amy Peterson, our treasurer. So it's the three of us here. I just want to, again, thank you for taking the time to look at our proposals. We've sent 2 of them since this process began. And after the first proposals in our meeting a couple of weeks ago, some of the members of the facilities committee board asked some great questions, and hopefully we were able to answer and address those issues in the second document that we prepared and made available to you folks last Friday. And hopefully everybody's had a chance to look them over, and we can see if we can come to a common ground here and common decision that can work for everybody, that so we can see if we can salvage the second half of our season. We have lost 9 nights of racing, which is completely understandable. Nobody's upset about any of that. And on our schedule, we have 9 nights of racing plus the World of Outlaws and then the Punky Manor, so which is later in September. So that's what's left of our schedule. And if there's any questions that anyone has for me that you need more clarity on, or for us, be more than happy to address those questions and give you the honest answer. So, and I just want my final comment is that we again spent past weekend going out to various racetracks in the area, observing, interestingly to see if anything had changed from times we'd been there before. We actually even had somebody go to Superior, and they reported back to us. One of our marketing director was up there, and she took notes and stuff like that. So some things were a little different now that they've been open since May 22nd. So we have seen some different things happening there. So anyway, I'll end with that. And, we're obviously very hopeful and looking forward to seeing good news and being able to start our racing season.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Does anybody else have any comments?
Don Keeter has his hand up.
Okay,
Yeah, I have a
Don?
hand up. Yeah, this is a question that I guess I can't figure out. I've tried to figure out how you could maintain social distances, which I assume is 6 feet, because that's what CIC recommends, and I think the county recommends that too, the county health department. And spacing of seats as those rows of seats go up, they're 2 feet apart. Well, if you would eliminate every other row, that would give you 50%, but then you'd still have people sitting side by side on the occupied row. So it seems to me, I don't know how you can get 50%. It seems to me 25% more might be more reasonable if you're going to have any hope of this 6 foot separation.
One of the things you got to realize too, Don, just like with the golf courses when they reopened, is we will be also finding out, there's families that visit the racetrack and they've all been together, and groups of friends. We have to also understand that there's been groups that will come to the racetrack together that have been together during this quarantine that can sit together, which cuts down on some of your spacing. If you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I understand that, but how are you going to separate groups and still get 6 feet between groups and without going down below 50%?
Well, I think the most current thing that we saw is that it's groups of 20 people or less is what we saw recommended from the county. But we will certainly, again, we're not here to argue or whatever, just, we'll do whatever we have to do to get this started. And, I know at the other racetracks, they are not mandating the 6 foot. They are recommending it, which is what we can do technically. But, that's where we're at with it. But we can mark spots and close spots and stuff like that if that's what's necessary.
Mr. Chair, if I could ask a question of Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you. Mark, when you and your people visited the other racetracks, what did you observe in the grandstands? How much distancing did you see taking place in the actual grandstands at the racetracks in operation?
Yes, sir. The very first racetrack that I went to was May 22nd, and it was at Superior, which is Gondik Law Speedway in their Douglas County Fairgrounds. They had 2 things that they were doing in the grandstands. Okay, number one is they had signage up everywhere, all along the fencing which is the main walkway, just like we have to get into the grandstands, reminding people to be considerate of social distancing and what 6 feet looked like. They actually had their signs 6 feet apart all the way along there to help people understand that. Second thing that happened is all throughout the night, they had a announcement that was read over the PA system consistently throughout the night from the CDC that dealt with crowd gatherings, reminding people to social distance and that kind of thing. And what I saw was people not compacted together, like Johnny was saying, there'd be a family of 4 or 5 sitting, shoulder to shoulder, and then there would be distance between them, to the next person or persons. Rice Lake, I've been there twice, both of their races, this past Saturday and then the Saturday before. And they have zero going on in their grandstands. I mean, people are just sitting down, and, you know, it's the and it's the same at Cedar Lake and the same at Mississippi Thunder Speedway down in Fountain City, and also in Jim Falls over in Chippewa County. So that's what I've seen though.
So if I can follow up, if I following what you're saying, you did observe some efforts at social distancing
Oh,
in
yeah.
Douglas County, but not
Yeah.
in the others.
Correct. The social distancing in the other facilities was done at like concession stands, beer window, restrooms with markings on the ground and stuff.
And then, if I may, one more question. Did you observe much in the way of use of masks?
Not much, no. No, there weren't very many people using masks. And as we all know, there's a couple of schools of thought on that, you know, so whatever you guys would feel comfortable with regarding that is something that, you know, obviously we're open to, you know, put into our regulations and mandates or recommendations. So.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments they want to make?
Mr. Rogers has his hand up.
Okay. Mike?
So I sent the letter to the committee members. I don't know if anyone had a chance to read it, but if you would grant me the opportunity, I got four items that I questions that I came up to answer to myself as far as looking at reopening it. So my first question, should we allow gatherings outside of an outside event with a large number of people? We already do. Currently, we allow large events in Menominee with no safety requirements enforced. We have local protests. We have, over the last couple of weeks, we've got extremely large gatherings or protests in nearby cities and nationally. And just for the record, I will adamantly fight for their rights to protest and anyone else who wants to do so. I proudly served my time in the Marine Corps, and I hold these rights and freedoms at the highest level of importance. So regardless of what you stand for, I support your right to be heard. So I'm not in any way discounting that. We also have allowed Menards, Walmart, grocery stores to operate over the last 3 months. They've been busy learning how to deal with social distancing and with this over the last few months. Not to mention all the places of work that have continued to operate. I personally have had construction sites with hundreds of people on. These workers were in relatively tight areas, and we've had no shutdown in the construction industry. And that's been in Eau Claire County. It's been in the city of Menominee. We have an apartment building with a large number of people on the site at a time. So to say that we haven't been doing this already in tight quarters, I would question that. Into opening up bars, restaurants, salons, and small businesses. And we're trying to get these back. They're trying to get back to work. And they're doing it safely moving. So I guess that's my first question, my first response. What are the actual health risks in relation to the personal rights being oppressed? To me, this is a serious question. How many people are ending up in the hospital And how many severe cases have we had in the Chippewa Valley? I fully understand the concerns for the elderly and the compromised. And we need to take all the cautions and steps that are necessary for these individuals. But we do live in a free country, or we used to. And when are we going to allow people, our citizens, to start making their own choices? If your choice affects the health and safety of others, then we have an issue that we have to address. But if your choice only affects you and people making the same choice, then why should we try to control these decisions? That's my second point. My third point, her question, does the county really have the right to prevent the racing from opening? I could argue this both ways, I guess, and there are points to be made on both sides. I'll, of course, take the side that I'm trying to support. The Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled against the governor in the case in the shutdown order. They ruled the Assembly and the Senate has to make the laws. So how can we say that the county has this authority when the court ruled the governor does not? We as a board cannot make laws. We should carry out the rule. They have not passed any bill. Our current Dunn County order is an advise and react, I believe, not a regulatory order. Moving on to my fourth question, I guess this is this instead of the county. I think the Racing Association would be best suited to control the situation. We have received very comprehensive safety protocol from the racing, and I believe that they will put this in place, and all parties involved seem to be very cooperative and motivated to move forward safely. The many members of the public that have emailed or called me all seem genuinely concerned about doing this in the right way. The churches, hospitality industry, businesses, they're all self-regulating within standards, of course. So why would we expect or require racing to be treated any different? And I'm sorry I'm so long-winded.
No, you bring up some very good questions here, Mike. As far as from the legality aspect of things, I would like to refer to corporate counsel to address the legality issues of anything. And I'm making reference to what he listed here as question number 3, as far as the Supreme Court ruling and that. So would corporate counsel please address that?
There. All right, now I got it fixed. Yeah, the issue regarding the governor's order and the authority of a local health officer to take decisive and authoritative action when necessary to prevent health hazards or the spread of communicable diseases, there are two separate issues. And right now, the Dunn County Health Department, the local health officer, is taking a more advisory approach. I think it's fair to say. But in the event that outbreaks occur or hotspots occur, in my opinion, she would have authority to shut down something if it was necessary to protect the health and safety of citizens. In the same way, she can compel cooperation with investigation into contact tracing with some authority as well. We can't, Dunn County can't pass a law or an ordinance that says there won't, racing's not allowed right now because we have a pandemic. That's law. What the health officer is doing is authorized by statute to take action to protect people. It's a, it isn't always a pandemic. Sometimes it could be typhoid or cholera or mumps or measles. And emergency orders like the one the governor did isn't always health related. Sometimes it's flooding. Sometimes it's drought. Sometimes it's a tornado, or tonight, hurricane. And so they're really addressed to different things. Dunn County can't pass an ordinance, though, that says that there's no racing. But the health officer, the local health officer, has authority to make a determination about whether or not the risk is just unacceptable, and issue orders in order to protect the health of people in the community. And, I don't know, we haven't conferred. I don't know what her thoughts are coming into this. I think certainly concern and science-based recommendations. If it turned out that racing events became, known or suspected problem areas of contagion, so that it's spreading, rapidly and quite well throughout the attendees, it could be that it could be dealt with at that time as well. But there is authority locally to take action to prevent communicable diseases and other health hazards.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
there's also the fact that we do have the clause in the contract with Red Cedar Racing that allows the county the discretion to cease the season or the races for public health considerations or other considerations. The Corporation Council vetted that with Red Cedar Racing when this issue first came up. So I really appreciate what Supervisor Rogers brought up on that point. But if the county decides that there should be some restriction on the racing season, it has nothing to do with the Supreme Court decision and everything to do with the contract and the county's right to operate its facilities as it sees appropriate.
Okay, I have another question for corporate counsel. As far as on Mr. Rogers' question number 4, why don't we just let the Racing Association regulate this instead of the county government? Would it, as far as, because the part of the issue is the expense of contact tracing if an outcome happens, could that responsibility be assigned to the Racing Association to cover those costs?
I don't know. I kind of doubt it.
Doesn't the federal government already pay for that?
Well, there are funding sources available to provide assistance for government to do that. A lot of it, though, is just sort of, it just has to be done, and so we get it done and try to recoup some of the costs of it from state and federal sources. Passing the expense on to racing, I guess I'd have to look into that. I don't know, but I kind of doubt it.
Okay,
certainly having them do the contact tracing and investigative work would not be acceptable. That would not be, that wouldn't even be considered.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. In relation to financial responsibility, as with all things involving money, it's something that could be negotiated and agreed to, as long as it's, not illegal. So if they're willing and the county would want to entertain some kind of an agreement, I don't see why that couldn't be done.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
this is David Bartlett. I couldn't get on the Zoom, so I called in.
okay.
Me too.
But I was looking at the website for Douglas County and racing and some of the stuff that has been brought up tonight. As far as masks, their employees are going to wear masks and they're encouraging people to wear masks, and they have masks available for sale. As far as social distancing, they talk about that all over their operation, COVID-19 operation procedures, but they're restricting the groups to I think it was Mr. Thomas that mentioned family groups, encouraging them to be no larger than 10. And they have an employee that's sanitizing all the. They evidently have outdoor biffies that's sanitizing the handles and stuff on them between every person that uses them. They have quite a few quite a list here in their procedures that they're doing, but no place does it talk about that they have to social distance in the grandstands. It's just all encouraged.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Niehoff has his hand up.
Yes.
Well, I
Go
guess I
ahead,
have a
Tim.
couple of things that I've thought about as we're going through here, and one of them is what risk are we introducing by potentially opening up the racing season? And I know that was brought up by Mr. Rogers or Supervisor Rogers. But Mark Thomas, I do have a question for you, because one of the things that I brought up last time, and I appreciate everything that you put together in the outline that you put together. But one of the things I thought was missing in there is the checking of temperatures of the racers as they enter the track.
Oh, I thought we addressed that we would be taking temperatures at both ticket stands, but if it didn't get in there, I'm looking right now at the document. For the racing side or the pit side, we definitely will and can. Yes. I mean, these are what we proposed was what we consider a foundation that of things we've witnessed, things that we've discussed it with our group to try to have the most comprehensive plan we possibly can to be as safe as we possibly can to reintroduce, citizens into, being able to go do, what they choose to do a little bit, and so anything that would need to be, added to, we can add to it, Yeah, we want feedback from you folks on how we can make this work. Listen, we're not here to try to make any enemies or anything like that. We're representing our clientele, that's, not just the racers, it's the fans, it's the racers, it's our sponsors, it's the, the citizens our fans, so, we're not here to try to, make any enemies with anybody, especially you guys. We know we have had a long history of 47 years of working together and 47 seasons of racing in our community. And we're well aware that not every single citizen in our community likes racing. The helicopter hovered over my house today and I didn't like it, but it's in this, it's something that we live with, and it's okay. I mean, I certainly not going to call anybody about it, but and we appreciate the fairness that we've been treated with, and we're looking forward to a long future. And that's, I just want to make sure you guys understand that we're not trying to do something that, can't be done, or isn't happening and maybe should be done or whatever. So, but yeah, anything that we can, anything that this committee or any other folks within the, county government that, needs more, attention given to it, or that verbiage put in, we can certainly add that. And that's what we, intended for our procedures to be looked at by you folks and whoever else needs to look at it, and then get back to us on, what we maybe don't have to do, and some things maybe we should be doing, or that you would prefer us to do.
Okay, thank you. The other question
Mr.
that I
Chair?
have, Mr. Chair.
One moment, Mr. Bartlett.
Okay.
Tim has the floor at this time.
All
The
right.
other question that I have is, if we run into issues or an issue where we do contract tracing traces back, and if we decide to open this up, how difficult would it be to go back and shut it down if we found that there was an issue?
To be honest with you, I don't think there'd be, I don't know, maybe Amy can help me with that answer if we had to shut back down again.
I think it's a simple announcement. All tracks
Yeah.
kind of have that policy right now that it's up in the air. If
Yeah.
the future, who knows the future?
So how, obviously if we were trying to race tonight with the weather, we wouldn't be able to race. So
Right.
for us to, if something happened where, if we were mandated to shut the operation down for maybe it's a 3-week period or the rest of the season, whatever that would be, we would just simply make our announcements to, all the parties involved, through our different social media messaging venues we have, including our website for our track, that, due to, an outbreak, I'm assuming you're talking about some type of an outbreak of COVID-19. So due to outbreak of COVID-19, either in our county, in our city, or at the racetrack, until further notice, we are no longer going to be racing. So yeah, that's how we would do it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Bartlett, you had a comment?
Yeah, well, I want to apologize that this calling in doesn't work near as good as being on Zoom, so you can see and raise your hand. But anyway, in Superior, they are taking temperature of everybody that comes in to the grandstand and the pits.
Okay, yes, and actually that was in the guidelines, the operational guidelines that Mark had sent to us. It was under the item of temperature scanners, where it says all attendees entering the facility will have their temperatures tested. Any attendee with a temperature of 100.4 degrees or higher will not be allowed into the facility. So that is already listed as one of your operational guidelines in there. So.
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody else have any comments at this time?
Supervisor Keeter still has his hand up,
Okay.
and so does Supervisor Rogers.
Gotcha. Okay, yes. Okay, Mr. Keeter.
You're muted, Don.
I didn't know I had my hand up. Okay. But I do have kind of more of a general philosophical question, I guess. I did hear on the news tonight, though, that about 40% of people who show no signs at all of being sick spread the virus. So I'm not sure if temperatures, it's a good thing, but it'll keep the real sick people out, but it won't keep a lot of the spreaders out. But anyway, just a comment, Dunn County hasn't had too many cases yet. And I think maybe part of it's luck, but part of it is because we have pretty well clamped down pretty quick. And there's almost no major gatherings. And just to list a few, Music over Menominee the library has been canceled. Ludington Guard Band has been canceled. Memorial Day activities were canceled. 4th of July Freedom Fest is canceled. Church services like our church, and I think most churches, are virtual. The county fair, we really cut back on that. Both the Minnesota and Wisconsin state fairs are canceled. And even tonight, we're meeting remotely because of our fear of this virus being transmitted. So my question is, why is racing something that we feel we could do where all the rest of these things are canceled?
Okay. Mr. Rogers, you had a comment? Well, we'll get back to you, Don. That'll be one of our end discussion things is, we will follow up on your comments there. Mr. Rogers, you had your hand up also.
As far as tracking, I know my wife has a salon, there's a couple salons and they're corporate, and part of their POS actually gets the names and addresses of all the customers. So if there is tracking issues that have to be followed up on due to a spread or an outbreak, it would help whoever it is that's doing the tracking to expedite that. And I'm wondering if that won't be something that's possible when they sell tickets to get names and addresses to help the health department if they did have to do some tracking on this situation. Maybe it's not even a big issue with I don't know how the tickets are sold, whether it's a POS or some other means.
Mark, could you respond? I mean, the racers, obviously, they have to sign in, right? Well, I'll just let you talk on that question then.
Yep. Okay, so anyone who enters the pit gate facility, because of the moving parts that are going on in that part of the facility with cars coming and going through the pit area and, working on their cars and stuff, they have to sign a waiver form on the way in. So that side of it has been going on since the inception of racing here, or at least since the inception of racing under the WSOTA sanctioning body guidelines and rules. Okay. As far as the grandstands goes, that would be a new entity for us. I know that Jim Falls, the first night they raced, they had a COVID-19 form of some kind. I wasn't there, I didn't see it, but since they've raced twice since that time and have not had those forms for people to sign on the way in, I think it must have been a one-time deal with their governing body and the people that own the track there. But I know in Superior, they weren't taking any names or anything in the grandstand side of things. And I know at Cedar Lake in Richmond, they're not doing that either. However, so to answer your question, could we do that? Yes. I think it would be something that, let's say I go multiple times. So once I've signed it, you have me. Would that work, or is it something that every single person every week would come?
We printed cards, so they know they signed in and passes, so they don't have to sign it here.
Yeah. Yeah. We have, in the pit side, we use these cards. So once the driver's signed in, then we do it all electronically from there. So we have all their information. So maybe that's something we could do on the grandstand side of things too. So, yep. I mean, what if that's something that would, be helpful or mandated, that's something that we would put into our operational policy.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any comments at this time? Anybody?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Mike, I saw your hand. Did somebody on the phone speak?
Yeah, this is Ron.
Okay, go ahead, Ron.
My reception's not very good, and I'm not on Zoom, so I'm on the phone.
Okay,
I just went back to work, and we're required to wear masks. We're required to wipe things down. We're required to tell the person that we're working at to wear a mask. We work in a 9-county area, and we go from here to St. Croix Falls or down to Pepin and I don't know, this it kind of scares me once in a while, you know, you just don't know. And I guess, you know, what I'm saying is that you can be at the wrong place at the wrong time. And you have to be careful. And I'm sick and tired of wiping things down. I'm sick and tired of wearing a mask. I see a lot of people where I go don't wear masks, and they don't really care. So, and if these people that I know, I read all the racing people that wanted me to read all their stuff. They seem like they want to go watch racing, and they don't seem to care if they are going to get the virus. They're more like they want to race, and that's all they want to do. So I guess let them. That's all I want to say. Bye.
okay, thanks, Ron. Anybody else have any okay, Mike, go ahead.
Well, and kind of on that point, we aren't, the people going to the racing are choosing to go, and they're interacting with other people that are choosing to go. And I would hope that people that are compromised or susceptible would not be going out in this gathering in the first place. So I'm kind of at the point where, why are we trying so hard to regulate people that are doing something of their own free will, on their own, interacting with other people doing the same thing, that are pretty independent of the rest of the masses?
Okay, well, I think the issue, at least as I see it, it's not so much as those attending the races. It's when they leave the race and go elsewhere, as far as any other activity, whether it be going to the grocery store or even going to these workplaces that are open. If somebody went to the races, picked up the virus, then went to work, wherever it may be, then working with your co-workers who has not gone to the races and has done everything right, and then they could, so I think that's where the issue lies. It isn't so much with those that want to go to the races affecting those at the races, which is a potential, but it's what happens afterwards is in my mind the thing we need to really try to protect the citizenry of. So that's how I see it. But Mark, you have your hand up. Yes.
Yep. Johnny has a question or comment.
So Chuck, you know, like when you talk about that, I'll tell you, I work for the city of Menominee, right? So I'm out on the road, I'm out on the roads, and we're down on Main Street right now, pouring a bunch of concrete to put sidewalk and stuff back in front of these restaurants, as well as trying to work on the highway up by Walmart. And, you know, you got to realize, so I understand the issue with that, but then again, we're an interstate community, and we see multiple vehicles from multiple cities and towns and states coming off the interstate to use our Walmarts and our marketplace and all of our all 4 of our quick trips that we have. And then we also have June 1st was student move-in day, and all of these kids that are coming into town, not understanding at the time. Now, obviously, Stout is coming back into session, first part of the school year. All of these students from Minnesota, Illinois, Iowa, they all moved in on June 1st. A lot of them did, and they're in town, and they're partaking the Silver Dollar where we're pouring concrete, and your grocery stores and your Walmarts. I think what we're talking about here is there's a lot more infiltration of outer communities coming into Dunn County and the city of Menominee than a lot of people realize. And that's a big part of like our situation and why we put these proposals in front of you guys, is because we feel like we have a comprehensive plan to try to be as safe as we can. Like I was in New Richmond at Cedar Lake on Saturday night watching the races, and I spoke to 6 or 8 people from 6 or 8 season pass holders at Red Cedar Speedway that were up there to watch. And I can't honestly tell you how many of our drivers were up there, but there's a lot of people coming in from a lot of other places that I think is being overlooked, even though our numbers and our testing on COVID is still so good. Our numbers is great, and we've been open for almost a month. You know what I mean? Bars, restaurants, everything. And I'm not seeing a lot of people wearing masks, even when I interact with people on the street, when they're talking to us about how nice the street or the sidewalk looks. They're out for a walk and they're not wearing masks either. And a lot of them are, I don't know how to put it, but like in their 50s or 60s, to where they're ready to just get out and do stuff too. So I guess that's what I just want everybody to kind of recognize, is there's a lot of other ways that people from out of state and out of town are coming into Menominee. It just needs to be recognized that our numbers are still really good as far as COVID goes, with the fact that people have been in here for a couple weeks and almost a month now with everything wide open.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any comments to make at this time? I do not see anybody's hands up. Is there any other comment? Does anybody have anything more to add to the discussion here this evening?
Mr. Chair, do you want to hear from KT Gallagher, our public health officer?
If she wants to speak, she needs to raise her hand so I can, yeah, raise your hand, KT. Okay. Go ahead, KT.
All right, thank you for that, Chair. So one of the things that I was asked to put together was some background information on the numbers. There's been a lot of conversation about where our numbers are, where our burden of disease is, where our trajectory is, where our, even my ability to do contact tracing. And so I have some slides that I was going to share. Maybe I won't belabor everything that we look at when I look at where I believe we are for a public health best practice as far as opening things up. But I wanted to share a couple quick slides, if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
All right. You guys seen my slides?
Yep.
All right. So to start, we did talk about numbers. I think that this is one of the easiest things to kind of wrap your head around about where are we with numbers, where are we with testing. This is one of the gating criteria that we use to inform that decision-making process. In Dunn County, we have had 29 positive cases. You can see from the graph where our cases have come in and what dates. We did see a fair jump associated with specifically a cluster of illnesses associated with an adjacent county industry. I think we spoke a little bit about construction. So we have had some construction impacts here in Dunn County. And then again, those positive cases then took that home to family. And so we had some asymptomatic cases associated with a positive with that cluster. So looking at that, we are only following 4 people. And so the number of new cases in Dunn County has been relatively low. We're very grateful that we've had no deaths. I think that's really important. Our testing is better than some adjacent counties. The state has a goal of having 85,000 tests a week for Wisconsin. That translates into about 625 to 650 tests in Dunn County a week. Right now, we're doing about 400. This week, we were at 365. The week before that was at 523. So we're definitely better covered with testing than some of our adjacent counties. But one of the reasons that is important is so that we know when people are sick and we're able to then do the contact tracing immediately adjacent to that. We talked about where are we in the region. So I think that while our numbers have been relatively low, we have some adjacent counties that not only as a case count have been significantly greater, but then also as a current rate of disease. So this is per 100,000. And so when you look at places like Trempealeau, even though their case count's not very high, because they have had a fair amount of cases more than we have and their population is low, it is definitely a tax on their local health department and their community. The areas that are concerning to me are really Pierce, St. Croix, Eau Claire, because they are jumping really quickly. And so that's one of the other things that we look at is trajectory. Where are we in Dunn County? So from the 15th of May, and so that encompasses the lag that we would anticipate seeing after the bars opened, as well as we did see a jump in adjacent counties. If you look at Polk County, it went up 200%, not a big number, but a big jump. But then if you look at doubling in St. Croix and Eau Claire counties as well. But these last 2 weeks have come down. So we are seeing a decrease in number of the trajectory. And so I think that that's a positive thing in Dunn County. I think that it remains to be seen if some of the large protests and gatherings will impact this trajectory in a different way. Number of cases are down. I think that that's also a positive over the last 8 days. Influenza-like illness. This is another metric that we're using and we're watching, slightly up. And then percent positive. And so this is something that the state is watching really closely. In Dunn County, we don't test that many people, as you can see. And so when we just have a few cases, the percent positive is going relatively up, but I think it's a kind of a flat number. The state, out of the 13,000 or so tests that they did today, they had about a 3% positive, 2.5% or so. Again, that's going down, that's good. Hospital capacity, also something that I look at. In Dunn County, you can see that we do have a good amount of licensed beds, and that was something that I had talked over the Memorial Day weekend, where we did have locally trauma that was impacting our availability, and then COVID and trauma in the Twin City Metro, where we will oftentimes package some of our high demand cases up and then move them to be have adequate care. That is still the case. The Twin City Metro is still very much at surge capacity and into their surge capacity, not only for COVID related things like ventilators, but bed space with trauma. And so that's important to know. But here locally, we're doing okay with our availability. This is something that concerns me when we talk about contact tracing 600 to 1,200 people related to a positive case, is my department's availability to do the follow-up. We have two metrics. One, that we try to contact each positive case within 24 hours, and then another 24 hours for every contact investigation. Right now, we have 2 cases associated with one place of business that is not being fully cooperative. And so that's really impacting our ability to get in front of transmission. So I think I heard it said very well before. It's not so much folks that are sick it's not so much folks that want to be at the races and have like-minded about getting sick or their risk potentially for COVID-19. It's really that secondary spread when they take it home to their family. If they've got family members with diabetes, if they've got family members with asthma, or something that makes them at higher risk for complications. And And it's that secondary transmission that concerns me, especially if we've got to contact trace 600 people in 48 hours. And so these are our current recommendations. And as we had shared with the health alert, they are public health recommendations based on the data and the science. Overall, we look good. Overall, we, I think, are ready to turn the dial on some of our social gatherings as well as our business places. And so right now we're looking at public gatherings of 10 indoors and 20 out of doors as a total. And I think we can turn that a little bit if the data holds true to a larger group. If we see a big rise based on protest activity and the sharing of germs and transmission, I think that that could change things. But my recommendation would be to move up incrementally, make sure that we can hold our threshold or burden of disease before we then move stepwise up from 50 to 100, 100 to 150 or 250. So that's the background information that I had hoped to share to kind of tee off what I look for and what my concerns are and what we are statutorily required to do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, does anybody else have any comments at this time?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So I've listened very carefully to the conversation because I know a lot of people have a lot invested in this. The county certainly does, Red Cedar Racing certainly does. And I know that there's a lot of people with strong feelings on both sides. My interest in the conversation for the facilities committee and ultimately the county board is giving you the information that you need to make an informed decision. I've been taking notes throughout. I wanted to offer a couple of observations based on some questions that I have heard in this meeting. I appreciate that we have situations that have occurred here in Dunn County in the past few weeks, including protests, that we have ongoing situations like construction sites, Walmart and Fleet Farm. But I wanted the facilities committee to bear in mind that we are not, that's not analogous to what we're talking about here, because the rec park is a county-owned public facility. It is not a private facility. It is not a public space. It is a public facility. And we are a county that among our litany of responsibilities is public health. Also, those other situations do not involve a situation like a grandstand where you can have 600 plus people in a relatively confined area, even though it's out of doors. So the analogy isn't quite there. Another consideration, and I've heard a lot of this, I've gotten calls myself, I've talked with people, not just about racing, other events that bring people together. I had a long conversation with a gentleman who does a baseball league. And a lot of people are focused on what amounts to personal risk assessment. They themselves do not feel particularly threatened by COVID. They don't know anybody who's gotten sick from it. They don't know anyone who has died from it. And Supervisor Rogers mentioned earlier about personal freedoms and the rights, personal rights, and that is a paramount and important consideration. But it's important to realize that personal liberty has never been complete. There's always considerations of the public good and the public health. That's why we don't get to yell fire in a crowded theater. That's why we don't get to smoke in a restaurant, on an airplane. That's why we don't get to fly down the road as fast as we feel comfortable. We have laws and rules because there are public health and safety considerations that trump personal risk assessment. And again, being a county as a unit of state government charged among its responsibilities with public health, we should bear that in mind. And finally, I appreciated the comment about the fact that we have people coming from other places, other states, other locations coming in here. We absolutely do. But it isn't the issue of whether or not we have other people coming for other reasons into our community. The issue in front of this committee is whether or not we will willingly set up a situation that creates a prime opportunity potentially for the spread of COVID-19. So not to put too fine a point on it, that's really the issue in front of the facilities committee, whether or not a county facility should be utilized in a way that has this potential. The last thing I wanted to say, we have in the form of KT and her staff, experts in public health, experts in epidemiology, just as we have an expert in Nick Lang in legal matters, and you have experts on county staff in financial and human resources. We hire these professionals because they have the education, the training, and the experience to advise us. And it is not the case that they make the decisions. That's why we have a facilities committee. That's why we have a county board. But we should rely upon those recommendations as much as we can, or at least give them serious consideration, because you always go counter to the opinions and directions of your experts at your own risk. So I hope and I know the facilities committee and the county board ultimately will take that into consideration as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other discussions to be brought up? Or any other questions by anybody?
Supervisor Keeter's hand is still up. I don't know if it is meant to be.
You're muted, Don.
No, it shows lower hand, so, no, I didn't have a question.
Okay.
You hear me? Yeah, you hear me?
Yes, yes, we
Yeah.
can.
Oh, it keeps flicking back to raising hand. There's something wrong here. No, but I don't, no, no raising hand.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else have any other comments? Yes, Mike, go ahead.
And I'd like to thank KT and Paul and Nick for their expertise. And I do appreciate the knowledge they bring to the table. And we as supervisors also represent the citizens and bring some input in as well. So it's all got to be put together and then make the wisest choice from there. We can't lean all on one side or the other.
Okay, so I guess at this time, if nobody else has any more input, we will move on to the next step, which will be, we actually have, in my thought process is we're gonna have two different things that we work through here. One of them is they have the proposals that they had sent along, and they had 5 proposals here. And my first process would be to do any of those proposals that they have listed. How does the board feel about those? And then the second one would be if we do approve any proposal, as far as their operating guidelines, are there any additions or corrections or adjustments that you would want to make to their operational guidelines? So my first question to the board here then is, on the proposals numbers 1 through 5, how does the board feel about any of those proposals? I'm opening it up to the board for discussion on the proposals. Anybody? What's your thoughts on
Supervisor Niehoff has his hand up.
Oh, okay, yes, go ahead.
I've read through all the proposals, and you know, I've listened to all the presentations. I don't take any of this decision lightly. Thinking about constituents and the spread of COVID-19. But out of all the proposals, if we were to consider one, proposal 4 is the one that I was looking at that would be more in line with what I was thinking about the possibility. I think we start small and work our way up.
Okay. I guess I'll just start at the top. Don, what's you're still muted.
Well, I'm still concerned about 50%. And I would like to see it start at 25%.
Okay, so then you're at 25% for 2 races, or what? Or because on these proposals, as you see, they have percent capacity for at different dates and stuff. So what are your?
I think at least there should be a month. By that time, we might see a little bit different. We might see some more statistics in the disease itself, and that might help us make a decision at that time.
Okay. Okay, Supervisor Rogers.
I guess I would agree with Tim on that proposal.
Before, okay.
That gives us a slow build up and still gets them back to racing relatively reasonable time frame.
Okay. Supervisor Score. Ron, can you hear me? Supervisor Score, can you hear me?
I had myself muted.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I agree with Supervisor Rogers and Tim, and I think we should start slowly. Unless they have it pay per view on TV, where they can have people pay to watch them play for the first few races, but then they can get some income. But yeah, start slow.
Okay. So we have 3 at 4. Okay. Supervisor Bartlett, what's?
I would agree with 4.
Okay. And as far as me, I would go with number 4 also. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at 4. Okay. So I guess that we'll go with. So now then the next phase would be as far as operational guidelines that the Racing Association had sent along with it. Are there any things in the operational guidelines that you would like to add or think don't need to be there, or what's your input on that? If you have any, if there's any, if you think they're okay the way they are, then if I don't see anybody's hands raised, well, then I will assume you're satisfied with the guidelines that were sent out. So at this time, I open it up for that discussion. Yes, Tim.
I would like to see specifically put in there about the pit area when they enter. I know it's probably implied in what it says, but I think if we specifically state that racers are tested for temperature also,
Okay.
I think that's covered then also.
So racers tested when entering. Okay.
It wouldn't,
Yeah, go ahead.
it wouldn't be just the racers. It would also be any pit crew.
Anybody entering the pit area.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Right. Anyone, yes, okay. So I'm gonna add that to under the pits category there. As far as the pits, something else that I would like to see added that I didn't see is the fact that after the race is done, that the general public would not be allowed to go into the pit area. You have the racers and their pit crews, and then that's it. Because I know in the past, it's my understanding that after the races, the fans go down there and they, talk to their favorite driver, etc. I guess I would like to see that when the races are done, the general public goes out the way they came in and go home, and the racers load up their vehicles and go home. How does anybody else feel about that? Tim?
I agree with that, Chairman Maves. The one thing that I think we need to take into consideration was also brought up last time, and that not just pit crews, but also their family members, because they talked about how drivers would drop off, you know, their potentially their spouse and their kids to watch from the grandstand, and then take them home at the end of the night. So I think those family members should be allowed to reunite with their drivers.
So, okay. So are you saying they should be allowed to enter the pit area after the race, or the drivers would pick up their families outside of the pit area? What, just so we understand what you're saying there, just so I understand.
Well, a lot of times there's a lot of things to do by those drivers and loading vehicles and you know, other things. So I guess what I was thinking is to allow family members in there, but if we had a gathering spot, I think that would be fine also.
Okay, Mark, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. We had talked about that at the last meeting. I think Tim was the one that brought it up. And whatever rules that we need to comply by, we can. As far as letting family members in, we had talked about giving them some type of you know, they would have to request that when they bought their ticket at the grandstand. They would request a pit ticket for post race, which we would just hand them. Let's say it's a little yellow note card, or you know, credit card size deal that gives them permission to go into the pits post race. Or you know, if you want to be more strict for a time period, you know, where we had the racers have to pick them up back where they dropped them off. You know, let's say we do that to the middle of July or through the 10th of July or something like that. And then, you know, be able to let them come back into the pits. You know, that's a whole nother month away. When, again, just like we talked about last time, why this meeting happened is let the numbers start seeing what was going to happen, and you know, maybe in a month we can revisit if things are going well, that we can open the pits up at post race kind of thing. So whatever the wishes are, we're willing to do. So either way we can do it. So if you want to ask your group if they want, you know, if they want to allow family members through some type of a special pass, we can do that. Or if you want them picked up outside of the pit area, then we can do that also.
Okay, yes, Tim.
I guess thinking through it now, I think it would be a lot cleaner if the family members were picked up where they were dropped off. So basically you're not allowing anybody to go from the grandstands into the pit area after the race.
Okay. Mr. Bartlett, did you want to, your phone keeps saying like you want to talk, but do you have something to say or no? On my screen here, your phone keeps lighting up like you want to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk or not?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
No, I don't want to talk.
Okay, so evidently your phone is just picking up some background noise, so your phone box is lighting up here. Okay, very good. Okay, so just so does anybody else have any other comments as far as the families going? Yes, Mr. Rogers.
I tend to agree with Tim to a point that we should limit the the access to the pit area. Maybe not for the whole race season. Maybe as things go along, get down the road a couple months or a month or so, maybe you let the family in at that point. Just maybe a little more flexibility, but I think it's okay either way.
Okay. Okay, so for now then, at least for 1 month, we'll put down that there'll be no going into the pits after the racing by anybody, okay? Does anybody else have any other comments on the operational guidelines as they were distributed to you as far as additions or?
Hey, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Can I ask Mark a question?
you sure can.
Oh, Mark, how many racers and their family members show up at a race?
Ooh, well, last year we averaged 107 racers. So not every night did we have 107. Some nights we might have had 125 and other nights 92, so anywhere in that window. Traditionally, the Red Cedar Speedway has been 90-ish to 125 cars. As far as how many people come, that varies obviously from car to car. For me personally, because I also race, I usually have my son that comes with me to help me with the car, and oftentimes, because I only live 6 blocks from the track, my wife and grandson will walk over and catch my race, and then they'll come over to say hi afterwards. But then, people that are parked near me will have, mom and dad and wife and a couple kids, so, I'd say an average per car would be 4 people in the pits with a car.
So you're saying like 400 people?
We're right in that 300 range, 300 to 350. Would you agree, Amy? I mean, you look at the numbers.
So in the first race, would that be your crowd? So family members? No, if you're going to be 25%?
I didn't realize we were 25%. I think the proposal we were talking about was 50%, but Mr.
Okay,
Mays.
well, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's 50%.
50% in the grandstands, yeah. And then in the pit's a whole different deal. There's no interaction between the pits and the grandstands. So we don't have people like going back and forth kind of a thing. And it's all spread out. I mean, it's a big area and it's all spread out, and there's, from center of car to the next car that's parked next to you is like 12 or 14 feet, is what the pit stall sizes are.
So then when you do have your first race and you're having 50%, you have, how many tickets would you be selling?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mr. Score. We're gonna have to get with somebody from the county to give us an accurate number on what the grandstand holds, as far as capacity.
That's all I wanted to ask.
We can go in and count the seats, but we don't want to have anybody, questioning if we fudge the numbers or whatever. So, it'd be a matter of one of our, or just the county do it, and whatever that number is, we're willing to accept, so.
As a matter of fact, I had just asked our facilities director, Scott Nobbyfeld, today to get me a count on the capacity in the grandstands for that very purpose. Yeah. That's why I was grinning at him, and he knows why I'm grinning too.
Yeah.
So Scott, when do you think that you'll have that number available?
I did a fairly accurate count, was 1,134 in the main grandstand. And then you look at the 2 sets of overflow bleachers is probably about 165 per set of bleachers.
Okay. So 1,461 as a total? If you add 1134, 165, and 165?
1464.
4, yeah. Dude, can't read my own writing. 1464.
Not that 3 people matter that much, Chuck, but
Well, that might be the 3 that break the camel's back. You just don't know.
that's my Spring Valley math education right there, buddy.
Okay, okay. So then, okay, so if that is the number, then so then you divide that by 2, obviously. So you got 732. So then you would sell 730. Your maximum ticket sale would be 732 tickets. Is that correct, Mark?
Correct. At 50%. Yep.
Okay.
I'm sorry, would that be inclusive of families accompanying the drivers and the pit crews?
Anybody in the grandstand?
That would be the grandstands. Ticket sales.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, help me
Yes.
understand here.
Yes.
So the drivers and the pit crews, the ones who are going to be in the pits, that's one. But if they have family members, they don't stay in the pits during the races. They go into the grandstands, yes? Is that correct, Mark?
Some do, some don't, you know. Okay. I'll give me a second to answer this. Okay. So we have racers that come and they'll stop by the grandstands, and their, you know, significant other and kids will get out. They'll buy a ticket for the grandstand, go to the grandstand, watch the whole race event. Okay. Then after the race is done, that normally they would come to the pits, reunite with their driver, or get picked up out by the grandstand, which is what we're going to be doing for the first month. Okay. Then there are other families who don't stop. They just come straight to the pit gate and buy all pit passes for everybody. And they just stay in the pits then the whole night. So that it's kind of 2. So if I drop my family off outside the gate, they need to be one of the 732 tickets that we can sell.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so let's dwell on that a little bit more, because I was under the understanding that in the pit area would be just the drivers and the pit crews, not the family members. And maybe I was understanding that wrong. How is the rest of the committee understanding where that?
Can I explain what?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. So here's how it works. Okay. So I go racing. I have my wife, my grandson, my son, and myself. Okay. The 4 of us. All right. We go, and my grandson, wife, and son want to go with me into the pit area so that we can interact throughout the evening, because I'm only going to race, you know, 8 laps of a heat race, and then I'm going to race 15 laps of a feature in a 3-hour window, or whatever the window is. Our window happens to be 3.5 hours, you know, with our curfew mandate of 10:30. Okay. Starting at 7 p.m. So how we interact is that my son will help me with specific things on the car. My grandson will help me with things. My wife will do my tear-offs on my helmet, make sure my safety gear is ready to go, and my battery works for my receiver. And, you know, so it's all an interaction of helping me prepare to go out on the racetrack to race. So the guy that parks a couple cars from me, I'll use his name. His name is Ashley Anderson. He lives in Elk Mound, and he has two sets of twin boys. Okay, that are his oldest set is going to be sophomores in high school, and his younger set, I believe, are going to be seventh graders this next school year. So they'll come, and all four of them, and we'll come into the pits, and they help Dad on the car, and then Ashley's dad will usually, come into the pits as well, and he helps on the car as well. So that's what goes on in the pit areas. People that come into the pits come for the reason of helping the racers prepare their cars, okay, to be able to go race. And most of them usually observe only the races that their significant other is in, or the person that they came there with. They may watch a few other races as time permits, if you don't have much to do to your car in between race events for you. Sometimes you're afforded more opportunity to, go watch a couple races and that kind of thing. But, usually it's they're there to help on the car. So hopefully that clears it up a little bit for everybody, kind of what goes on in the pits.
Okay. So in essence, you're saying some family members are the pit crew.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So
I would say that the vast majority, I'm speaking 85+%, that's what they do. Exactly what I just said.
Mark, do family members ever go from the pit area where they first pull in up into the grandstands?
No.
Okay.
No.
So, Mr. Chairman, what I was getting at was whether or not the families that might be at the pit area end up in the grandstands, because that would count against the number of tickets. But
Right.
It sounds like that's not the case.
Right. And I guess, Mark, that it would have to be an understanding that is for sure the case, that once you're in the pits, and that's it. Just so everybody understands that, amongst your racing people.
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I got another question.
Yes.
Okay, now you got 732 people in the stands, and then how many people you got in the pits? So do you add them all together for a group?
No,
yeah. You asking me?
No, I'm just talking to everybody on that one.
Okay.
Right. It's the understanding that in the grandstand area would be a maximum of 732. And then in the pit area would be it would not count towards that 732 because they're over in the pit area, and they're, according to your guidelines here, they're maintaining at least 15 feet from center of each spot. And here again, I realize during the excitement of the race, but you're going to have to ask your people to the best of their abilities, maintain the social distancing.
Oh yeah.
Right. Just so, yep.
That's part of our guidelines with signage and announcements over the PA, and yep.
Right. So does that answer your question, Mr. Score?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Okay, does anybody else have any other suggestions or ideas as far as on the operational guidelines that was submitted? I see no hands. So everybody's satisfied with what we've talked about. And just to make sure that we do, the changes that we have been made on the notes that I have taken, all fall underneath the pit area. Anyone who is entering the pit area, whether it be a racer or a test or their crew, will have their temperatures taken. There will be no gathering in the pit areas after the racing, and for 1 month, trial period. Is that how everybody else understood what we have discussed this evening?
Yes.
Okay. Okay,
Just for clarification, Chairman Mays, the 1 month trial period was for family members not going from the grandstand to the pit area.
correct. Correct.
That is correct. That is what we discussed.
Yep, yep. Okay. Okay. So I do have one question for Mark. At the beginning of this, not tonight, I mean, at the beginning of the season, the question was always asked as far as maintaining your sanction in the Wissota Racing Association, as far as what would you need to do to maintain your sanction? Have you ever gotten a answer from the Racing Association as to what you would have to be your minimum requirements or what you need to do?
Yes, we did. Did you get an email from the director of Wissota, the chief executive? His name is Carson.
Yeah, the guy that lives in the Minnesota someplace?
Yep.
Yep, right here, yep.
Home
Yeah,
base for
yep.
Carson Graham.
Carson Graham, executive director, yes.
Okay. Did you read? I didn't get it from him, so I don't know what he sent you, but did he make any note of it in there?
I did not pick up on it.
Okay. So
let's see here. No, I do not see where he talks about minimum requirement to stay sanctioned.
Okay. Well, I have an answer to your question.
Okay.
I just thought I didn't know if he included any of that information in his document to you or not. But
no.
As recent as today is Tuesday, as recent as yesterday, through communication with Carson, and he has been able to poll the majority of the Wissota board, and there would be no penalty to us moving to 2021. In other words, we would still be allowed to have Friday night racing moving forward, and we would also keep our Punky Manor date, which is our invitational at the end of the season. So Wissota operates through the 1st of September, and then through the month of September and part of October, weather depending, is invitational season. So there's everybody, not everybody, but most tracks will have a 2-day event to try to, get one last hurrah in for the season. That's our Punky Manor race in September. Okay. So we wanted to make sure that we would stay sanctioned on Friday nights starting in 2021 and thereafter, if we were not allowed to race in 2020 at the Red Cedar Speedway, and that we would also be grandfathered the date of our invitational race, which is the Punky Manor, towards the end of September, the 3rd weekend in September, or whatever it is there. So.
Okay.
The obvious issue for us is financially, we can or not. But as far as answering your question with the Wissota sanctioning, that is our answer. So.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Yeah. Like I say, it was not addressed in the letter. So thank you for answering that.
Yep.
Okay. So the next, our next step would be to pass a resolution to forward on to the exec committee. So I'm opening up to the board again. How do you want it worded? So we make sure we get everything identical. So we make sure we're all on the same page. So here again, I'm opening up to the floor to make a proposal?
If I may offer
I-
for the committee's consideration,
Yes.
the motion would be to recommend to the county board that Red Cedar Racing be permitted to have a season in 2020 in accordance with the protocols submitted by Red Cedar Racing in proposal number 4 as modified by the discussion at the facilities committee.
Okay,
That's very good. I'll make that motion.
okay, so who wants to make it and who wants to second it?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Supervisor
I'll second it.
Rogers. And
Say as he spoke, or do I have to repeat it?
no, that's fine, that's fine. Because it'd be too hard for any of us to repeat, hopefully.
Verbatim, Mr. Rogers.
Okay, I guess you gotta say it, Mike, let her rip, no, you got it, right, Marge?
No, I'd like it repeated. Can
Oh,
I can clarify it for Marge for the minutes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Again,
Okay.
the motion is to recommend to the county board to authorize a racing season for Red Cedar Racing 2020 in accordance with the proposal submitted by Red Cedar Racing and the proposal number 4 as modified by the discussion of the facilities committee.
With noted changes to
From the facility committee, right?
Right, on the operational guidelines.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Marge, don't worry, I can help you craft that for the minutes too and the resolution. I'll be involved in writing that.
Shoot me an email in the morning.
Okay, okay, very good. Okay, so a motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed?
No,
Okay, motion passed. Okay, that ends the meeting for this evening. Thank you for your time and your input. And at this time, the meeting is, oh, just a second, Mark, you have something to say?
Okay, yeah, a question. So next step is tomorrow then with the executive board, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And where and when is that meeting?
That meeting is tomorrow at 3:30. It is going to be an in-person meeting, Mark, at the Community Services Building in the basement. Please be aware that while the public is invited to attend, you do want to call ahead. You can call to my office. We'll need to ask you COVID-19 screening questions. Please bring a mask. Everybody who's attending will be asked to wear a mask throughout the duration of the meeting.
Okay, so 3:30 in the basement. And call your office sometime tomorrow.
Please.
Could I get that number quick from you, sir?
If I knew it, I don't ever call my office.
I know, I hear you.
We're on the website, Mark.
Yeah.
You'll find us there.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, any other further discussions? If not, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.